Hey, this is the Stay in Your Lane election edition. That's right, we're only a week out, and all the pressure is building in society, the tension, everything that's going on. Maybe like me, you've already voted, maybe you haven't, but let's just take an approach from Stay in Your Lane and think about how do we process through this election. So remember the idea of Stay in Your Lane. It's the CIA. What do you control? What do you influence? What do you accept? You want to control what's mine, you can influence what's theirs, and then you accept what's God's. So what goes in those three very specific columns? Well, the first thing that we have is, what is it that I actually control? Well, first and foremost, I control my vote. I only get one. I wish I got more. I get the same as you. I think I deserve more than you, but it doesn't work that way. We each get our one individual vote, and mine belongs to me. That is in the what's mine column. I get to do with it whatever it is that I wish. You can't control me. You can't manipulate me. You can't force me. That solely belongs to me. Well, what else do I control? Well, I control how much I respect you. I control what I say to you, what I say about you. I control whether or not I judge you or don't judge you. All of those things belong to me. Now, what's yours? What's theirs? What belongs to somebody else? What is something that I don't control, but I can influence? Well, I don't control, but I can influence what you think, what you believe, but I can only really do that through the process of relationship. So me posting on Facebook or saying outlandish things or being bombastic on social media in no way really is going to influence you. If I want to influence you, it has to be through the process of relationship. But I don't control what you do with your vote. You get to do whatever you want to with it, and that ultimately is between you and God. Now, I also don't get to control the candidates. I wish I did. I would have picked different ones, but I don't. And so however they act, however they respond, that ultimately is their responsibility. And then, what belongs to God? What is it that I just simply have to accept? Well, that ultimately is the outcome of the election. I don't control that. I really, where I am, can't influence it. I just have to, with open hands, accept that, God, you are sovereignly in control, and you get to choose in the end who wins. What do you control? What do you influence? What do you accept? Control your vote, control your mindset, control your voice, influence where you want to if you desire to, and then accept what the outcome actually looks like. But I wonder, it's not a direct application, but there is an element of Romans 14 that I think possibly fits in to this concept of the election. In Romans 14, that Paul is writing about the weak and the strong whenever it comes to faith. And there are these divisive issues within their culture of how you correspond, how you interact with some of the food that was in the temple, how you dealt with some of the meat, some of those kind of issues. And there was this great contention that went back and forth. But listen to just a few verses in Romans 14, and is it possible that we can apply them to these contentious issues within our culture, where within the same church, people are going to vote different ways, have different ideas of how to approach things. Listen to what he says, Romans 14. You then, why do you judge your brother or sister? And why do you treat them with contempt? For we will all stand before God's judgment seat. So even if you disagree with somebody, you can't quite understand, why do they come to a different conclusion? Why do they have a different yard sign in their yard than maybe what you would have in yours? If that's the situation, don't judge them. Don't stand in contempt of them. At minimum, understand, ultimately God will judge them, so you don't have to. So he says in verse 13, therefore let us stop passing judgment on one another. Verse 19, let us therefore make every effort to do what leads to peace and mutual edification. So to recognize, I got my vote, you got yours, we disagree, we agree. In the grand scheme of things, we can only be responsible for what we're responsible for. But now, how can I build peace with you? How can I edify you? How can I assist you? And then, is it possible that Romans 14:22 even applies? So whatever you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God. Is it even possible that we have to be very careful about some of these political issues of even letting our opinion be prominent within our lives? Because if we make it prominent, it's conceivable that could injure our ability to truly minister and be a brother or a good sister to somebody else. So is it possible that we need to vote with all boldness, communicate with our representatives as much as we want to, but then beyond that, kind of keep some of those opinions between us and God. Notice the text doesn't minimize our beliefs, but what the text is basically saying is there's some opinions that just simply aren't worth sharing because there are some things that are more important than others. And as important as an election is, as voting is, as the issues are, what is more important is our testimony to Jesus, our ability to influence other people for the kingdom of God. And so is it possible that on some of these issues, whatever you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God? What do you control? What do you influence? What do you accept? Control your vote. You can influence other people where you want to, but ultimately accept the outcome that is going to come from God, and then be first and foremost not about this little kingdom, but about his big kingdom. And that's how you and I can stay in our lanes when it comes to this election.